This whole thing went down just a couple of months ago, and I'm still kind of rattled about it. I had this group of friends who lived about an hour and a half away from me. I drive out to hang with them all the time, and the trip never really bugged me. We'd have a blast, and I'd hit the road back home without a second thought. But after this one night, man, I've come to dread that drive. It was about 2 a.m. when I first noticed the car, maybe 20 minutes into my trip home. The roads were dead, hardly any cars out at that hour, so it stood out when this guy was practically riding my bumper. I thought it was weird, especially since there was no one else around. No reason for him to be tailgating like that. I brushed it off, though, figuring he was just some asshole who didn't know how to drive. So I cranked up my music and tried to ignore him. The freeway part of my drive takes about 55 minutes, and this guy was behind me the entire time. I didn't think much of it until I saw him take the same exit as me. That's when I started feeling a little uneasy. My heart sped up a bit, but I told myself I was just being paranoid. It's a coincidence, I thought. No need to freak out. I kept driving toward home like usual, but then I noticed this car was making every single turn I did. That's when the anxiety really kicked in. To test if I was just imagining things, I started turning down random roads, streets I'd never take on my normal route. Sure enough, the car was right there, trailing me like a shadow. At this point, I stopped heading toward my house. No way was I leading this creep to where I live. I just started driving aimlessly, my mind racing, trying to figure out what to do. I tried making last-second turns down side roads to shake him, but it didn't work. He stuck with me. I was so freaked out that I started blowing through red lights and stop signs. I know it was reckless, but I was terrified of what might happen if I stopped. I was desperate, so I grabbed my phone and called the police. I told the dispatcher I'd been followed for over an hour now. My voice was probably shaking as I gave them a description of the car and my location. The dispatcher was calm, told me to drive straight to the nearest police station, and said there'd be officers waiting for me in the parking lot. I gripped the wheel, my palms sweaty, and kept driving, checking my rearview mirror every second. When I finally pulled into the police station parking lot, my heart was pounding. The moment I turned in, the car behind me peeled out and sped off. I saw one of the police cruisers flip on its lights and take off after it. I parked, my hands still trembling, and just sat there for a second, trying to catch my breath. The officers took my statement, and I told them everything, how long the car had followed me, how it matched every turn, everything. They were professional, but didn't say much about what might happen next. I didn't hear anything for a while, so I followed up with a police station a few days later. The officer I spoke to didn't go into a ton of detail, but he said they'd caught the guy. Apparently, they found a bunch of meth and some seriously dangerous weapons in his car. He's in jail now, thank God. I don't know what his deal was or why he was tailing me, but I'm just glad I trusted my gut and didn't stop. That night still haunts me, and I get nervous just thinking about driving alone late at night now. So my boyfriend and I decided to take a trip with another couple to visit some friends in Richmond, Virginia. We figured it'd be fun to split an Airbnb, so the other couple picked one out. They hadn't spent much time in Richmond before, and the place they chose was about 15 or 20 minutes outside the city center. It was kind of a hassle to get into town, but honestly, it wasn't a huge deal. The neighborhood seemed nice enough, and the house itself was okay. Not amazing, but fine for a weekend stay. The owner even left us some homemade banana bread, which was a sweet touch. When we got to the house, it fell off. I can't quite put my finger on it, but there was this weird, almost creepy vibe. Like when I went to put our bags in the bedroom, I opened the closet, and it was completely empty except for this small wooden chair, like something a kid would sit in. It was just sitting there, facing the bed. No hangers, no towels, no linens, nothing. I know it sounds silly, and it's not like it was inherently scary, but it gave me the creeps. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was reading too much into it. We were only there for a couple of days, so I figured I'd just deal. We settled in, dropped our stuff, and headed into the city to meet up with our friends. We had a great time, had a few drinks, laughed a lot, and called it a night around 1:30 a.m. The four of us drove back to the Airbnb, and we were all pretty beat, so we just crashed. Normally, when I've had a few drinks, I'm out like a light. Once my head hits the pillow, nothing wakes me up until morning. But that night, something was different. Maybe it was the weird vibe of the house, but I woke up around 3 a.m. to this quiet, eerie giggle. It sounded like a grown man, just chuckling softly. At first, I thought maybe my boyfriend was laughing in his somnol, but then it got louder, and I realized it was coming from outside our window. The window was right behind a bed, just above our heads. I lay there, frozen, listening as the giggling grew louder. I quietly slipped out of bed and crept over to the window, trying to see if I could spot anything. Nothing. No one was out there. The giggling stopped the moment I looked, which made my skin crawl. I was about to climb back into bed, thinking I'd imagined it, when it started again. This time it wasn't just a giggle. It built into this full-on hysterical laughter right outside our window at 3 a.m. My heart was pounding, and I felt my boyfriend's hand grab mine, squeezing tight. I didn't even realize he was awake until that moment. "Did you bring your gun?" I whispered, my voice shaking. "No," he said quietly, "but I've got a knife." "Did you see anything out there?" he asked. "No, I couldn't see anyone," I replied, my eyes still glued to the window. The laughter kept going loud and unhinged for what felt like forever, probably about 15 minutes. We stayed up, huddled together, staring out the window, waiting for it to stop. When it finally did, we sat there until 4 a.m., too spooked to go back to sleep. We kept peeking outside, making sure the laughter didn't start up again. Eventually, we passed out from exhaustion. The next morning, we asked the other couple if they'd heard anything weird during the night. They looked at us like we were nuts and said they hadn't heard a thing. One of them even suggested I dreamt the whole thing. But how could both my boyfriend and I have dreamt the exact same thing? A random person laughing their ass off right outside our bedroom window. I'm still torn on what's creepier. The fact that we heard this maniacal laughter at 3 a.m. in that creepy-ass house, or the fact that when I looked out the window, there was nothing there. Maybe I couldn't see whoever it was, or maybe they were standing right under the window. But why the hell would someone stand outside a stranger's house at 3 a.m., giggling and laughing for 15 minutes, and then just leave? Nothing else happened after that, and we went back home, but to this day, my boyfriend and I still talk about it. It's hands down one of the creepiest things that's ever happened to us. I don't know who that guy was or what he was doing. Maybe he was trying to lure me into opening the window, or something worse. All I know is I'm damn glad I never found out. This happened just a couple of weeks ago, and it still gives me the chills thinking about it. My girlfriend and I were driving back to Los Angeles from Arizona, a long haul on the I-10. It was around 2 a.m., and we were both desperate to pee, so we pulled into a rest stop just past the valley. The place was pretty quiet. There were a bunch of trucks parked on one side and a few cars on our side, but no people milling around. The whole vibe felt off, like something out of a horror movie, but we were tired and didn't think too much of it at first. My girlfriend took one look at the place and decided she could hold it. She was like, "Nah, I'm good, I'll wait." But I really had to go, so I told her to lock the doors and stay in the car while I headed to the bathroom. Inside, it was creepy as hell. There was this barefoot, super dirty guy just sitting on the floor under the sinks, watching videos on his phone. I live in Hollywood, so I'm used to seeing some weird stuff, but this guy gave me bad vibes. I avoided eye contact, did my business as fast as I could, and got out of there. When I got back to the car, my girlfriend changed her mind and said she needed to go after all. So I walked her to the women's bathroom and waited outside. The rest stop was still dead, no one else around except that creepy guy under the sinks. We got back to the car, grabbed some snacks from the trunk, and hopped in. The doors were locked, the engine was running, and we were just sitting there for a minute, getting ready to hit the road again. That's when I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. This old, massive 70s sedan was slowly cruising by behind us. I could see it was packed with 4 or 5 guys, their windows rolled down. Here's the thing. I parked way off to the side, nowhere near any other cars, but they pulled into the spot right next to us. My spidey senses started tingling, and I got this gut feeling something wasn't right. Before they even came to a full stop, I threw the car into reverse and peeled out backward. I heard their driver yell, "Hey," like he was trying to get our attention, but I wasn't about to stick around to chat. As I backed up, they put their car in reverse too, like they were trying to block us from leaving. Thank God I was driving a newer Subaru, because their clunky old sedan didn't stand a chance. I floored it, swerving around them as they tried to cut me off. We booked it out of that rest stop like our lives depended on it, and I was doing a solid 90 on the I-10 for a few miles just to put some distance between us and them. I can't say for sure what would have happened if we'd stayed or let them stop us. Maybe they just wanted to ask for directions or something innocent, but deep down, I don't think they were there to make small talk. My girlfriend and I were both shaken up, and we barely spoke for the next hour, just processing what the hell just happened. I'm just glad we trusted our instincts and got out of there fast. That rest stop is burned into my memory now, and I don't think I'll ever feel safe pulling into one that late at night again. I'm a long-haul trucker, but I haven't been at it long enough to have a ton of wild stories. No Route 66 ghost tales or anything like that. But there's this one night that still messes with my head, and I can't shake it. It happened while I was driving through Montana, headed east. My company screwed up my mileage calculations, so I was running low on fuel and had to request an emergency stop. They sent me the location of the nearest approved gas station, but it was way off the main highway, out in the middle of nowhere. It was pitch black outside, no moon, no city lights, not even a single headlight for the past hour. I'm cruising along this lonely stretch of road when I spot something up ahead, right at the edge of my headlights range. I slowed down as I got closer, and when I finally got a good look, I slammed on my brakes so hard my heart was in my throat. All I could think was, what the fuck did I just see? I backed up my rig, watching in my side mirrors until I saw it again, glowing red in my brake lights. I parked, grabbed my jacket and flashlight, and hopped out to check it out. The air was cold and still, the only sound coming from the low hum of my truck's engine about 50 feet back. I walked to the rear of my trailer, flicked on my flashlight, and there it was, a headless, skinless, mangled corpse just lying in the middle of the highway. I froze, my jaw practically on the ground. I didn't know what I was looking at. It was a mess of meat and bones, with a fully intact ribcage and a tangle of ligaments holding other bones together. No fur, no clothing, just flesh and steam rising off it in the cold air. I stood there, staring, my mind racing. The ribcage looked big enough to belong to something human-sized, maybe even my size. I thought about calling the police, but I checked my phone. No signal. The nearest town was about 50 miles away, so I was on my own. I panned my flashlight around, and that's when I saw them, a handful of coyotes at the edge of the road, just staring at me. Then they started moving, slipping through a fence and trotting toward me. That snapped me out of it. I wasn't about to stick around and see what they were after, or if I was next on the menu. I hightailed it back to my truck, climbed in, and kept driving. My heart was still pounding as I pulled away, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. To this day, I don't know what the fuck it was. I tried convincing myself it was just a deer, maybe hit by another truck at high speed. That kind of impact could do some serious damage, right? But I've seen plenty of roadkill in my time, and I've never seen anything missing its flesh like that, with no fur or skin to speak of. It looked too deliberate, too wrong. Whatever it was, and whatever happened to it, I'm just glad I wasn't there to witness it go down. That night still creeps me out, and I don't think I'll ever forget the way that thing looked under my flashlight. This happened on Friday the 13th of all nights, during a camping trip with my girlfriend and 3 friends. We were road tripping through Europe, usually staying at proper campgrounds where we could safely pitch our tents. But some spots were so off the grid that we just camp in the wilderness. We'd done it 3 times before without any real issues, despite the creepy vibes you get in the middle of nowhere. But the last night of our trip, in the Jura region of France, scared the hell out of us. Our final camping spot was near a river, with a wildlife park on the opposite bank. We planned to stay one night, but since we were all exhausted from 2 weeks of traveling, we decided to make it 2 to rest up. The area was super remote, dense woods, mostly unpaved roads, and a lot of dead ends. It felt like no one else was around for miles. When we got there, we drove down a bumpy road to the riverbed, only to find a group of loud, drunk guys already there. I hopped out of the car with 2 friends and, using my best broken French, asked what they were doing. They said they were fishing and planned to stay a couple of nights. I asked if we could camp nearby, and they said it was fine, but something about them felt off, like they weren't the kind of people you want to spend the night around, if you catch my drift. We all got the same bad vibe, so we decided to find another spot. We drove further along the road, bouncing over rough terrain, until we found this absolutely gorgeous place by the river. It was honestly one of the most beautiful spots I've ever seen. It was already dark, so we didn't notice how bad the road was, muddy, with rocks sticking out everywhere. After a bumpy descent, we reached the spot, set up our tents, and everything seemed perfect. The next day, we spent chilling by the river, swimming, and just soaking in the scenery. Me and Joey, the main driver, decided to head to a store for snacks and drinks for the night. On the way up the road, we hit a snag, mud and a huge rock were blocking our path. We figured we'd dig it out and keep going, so we got to work. While we were struggling with a rock, this guy with a dog showed up in an old SUV. He seemed friendly enough, said he was a local heading for a swim, and offered to tow our car out. As he pulled us free, he mentioned he'd towed plenty of people out of that spot before. He suggested we park higher up on a less steep part of the road, way farther from our camp. We thanked him, got our groceries, and headed back. When we returned, our friend had somehow managed to dig out the entire rock. All we had to do was roll it off the road and fill in the hole. We got the car back to our camp without any issues, which turned out to be a lifesaver later. Our camping spot had 2 main areas, the dead-end road where our tents were, and a narrow 30-meter trail leading to a small peninsula by the river. The peninsula was stunning, with a clear view of the water and the wildlife park across it, but the trees and slight elevation meant we couldn't see the tents from there. It was so beautiful that we decided to have dinner on the peninsula. Me, my girlfriend, and one friend started prepping food while Joey and his girlfriend stayed back at the tents to have some couple time. While we were cooking, I got bored and took an inflatable boat out to paddle around the river and stargaze. Nothing creepy had happened yet, but when I got back, my girlfriend and our friend said they'd heard dogs barking aggressively, maybe 50 to 100 meters away. We knew those fishermen we'd met earlier had dogs, and since we were in a wild area, we didn't think much of it at first. Some time passed, and I realized I hadn't seen Joey or his girlfriend in a while. I decided to head up the trail to the tents to check on them. I called their names, but got no answer. I wasn't worried yet, just figured they were off doing their thing. I started grabbing some supplies for dinner when, out of nowhere, Joey and his girlfriend came sprinting down the road toward me, totally panicked. It was pitch black by then, and I only had my flashlight. Those dogs were barking again, and this time they sounded closer, way closer. They started explaining, out of breath, what happened. Apparently, they'd wandered about 150 meters up the road from the tents to sit by the river. While they were there, they heard footsteps coming toward them. They didn't have a flashlight or phone light, so they got spooked. Joey shouted, "Who's there?" but got no response. Feeling creeped out, they decided to head back to camp. As they started walking, the footsteps kept following them. They picked up their pace, and the footsteps got faster too. By the time they were near the car where my flashlight was shining, they were running full speed. The second they stepped into the light, the footsteps stopped. The dogs were still going nuts, though barking like crazy. I wasn't sure if we were in real danger, but I wasn't taking chances. Thanks to our friends digging, the car was right by the tents now. I jumped into the driver's seat, with Joey and his girlfriend in the back. I turned on the headlights, shining them up the road. Joey got out to grab my girlfriend and the other friend from the peninsula, where they were still cooking. The dogs kept barking, just as aggressive as before. Once everyone was in the car, we tried to make sense of what happened. Joey, a bit calmer now, thought it might have been an animal, and the dogs were reacting to it. I was leaning toward that too, but the others weren't convinced. Joey's girlfriend swore up and down that the footsteps were definitely human. The rest of the group sided with her, and we decided we weren't sticking around to find out. It was about 1 a.m. by then. We stayed in the car for a bit, watching the surroundings and listening to see if the barking would stop. It kept going for a while, then suddenly went silent. Right when it stopped, I saw a shadow dart across the road, right where the headlights hit. I couldn't tell what it was, but it was fast and, like Joey's girlfriend said, it looked human. That was it for us. Me and the two other guys got out, keeping an eye on the dark woods while we packed up our stuff as fast as we could. The dogs started barking again, but farther away this time. We threw everything into the car and got the hell out of there. I know it's possible, maybe even likely, that it was just an animal. But the more I think about it, the weirder it gets. Those fishermen we met earlier had dogs, not the friendly golden retriever kind either, and they gave off a sketchy vibe. Some of us wondered if one of them followed us. Then there was the friendly local who towed us out and told us to park higher up. My paranoid brain keeps wondering if he came back, knowing exactly where we were, maybe even setting us up by getting our car away from the camp. Joey's girlfriend is still adamant those footsteps were human. We don't know what or who it was, and honestly, I'm just glad nothing worse happened. That night still freaks me out when I think about it. This story comes from my grandma, who told it to me from her perspective, and man, things were so different back in the 50s. It was February 1956, and she was 18, a freshman at a big state university in the Northeast, part of the Midwest U.S. division. She always said college was the most freedom she'd ever had, even with the super strict curfews for girls and the ugly amount of racism and sexism baked into the school's culture, both from the faculty and the students. The university was also weirdly secretive about any crimes on campus, which makes what happened to her even crazier. So it was a few months into the winter semester when my grandma caught the Hong Kong flu that was going around. She was miserable, especially because it meant getting her first ever penicillin shot. To keep her roommate from getting sick, the school moved her to a different room in a new wing of her dorm, one that was still under construction with finishing touches being added. They needed the extra space because the flu was hitting so many students, and they were turning rooms into recovery spaces to isolate sick kids. She unpacked her stuff in this temporary room on the first floor and settled in. Her stomach was aching, so she couldn't sleep and decided to do some homework to pass the time. From her desk, she could see maintenance workers outside, hammering away and getting the new rooms ready. She was sitting there in her pajama shirt and underwear, hair curlers in, just grinding through her assignments. After a few hours, it was around 10 p.m., and she figured she'd try to get some rest and pick up her work tomorrow. She's not sure how long she was asleep, but out of nowhere, her locked door swung open and the lights flipped on. She bolted upright, clutching the covers to her chin, thinking there was a fire or some campus emergency. Her heart was racing as she saw a man, maybe in his late 40s, walk in and close the door behind him. She heard the lock click, and that's when it hit her this wasn't about an emergency. The fact that he turned the lights on was weirdly unnerving because it let her see every detail about him. He was wearing a rust-colored suede bomber jacket and these green corduroy pants. His complexion was rough, and his hair was this bright, almost unnatural red. As he walked toward her, he put a finger to his lips, shushing her, and that's when she noticed he was holding a sharp screwdriver. Everything felt like it was moving in slow motion. Her brain was stuck on the most ridiculous thing. She didn't want this guy to see her in just her pajama shirt and underwear. As he got closer, holding the screwdriver to her throat, she started talking, trying to keep her cool. "What are you doing in here?" "I'm really sick, and you're going to catch it too," she said, her voice probably shaking. He just growled, "Be quiet, and you won't get hurt." He was right beside her twin bed now, pressing the screwdriver harder against her neck. She kept the covers pulled tight to her face, still weirdly fixated on not letting him see her like that. She kept going on about the flu, saying, "I got the Hong Kong flu. It's super contagious. You're going to get sick." He snapped at her, pushing the screwdriver even harder, and shouted, "Shut up, you stupid little girl. Be quiet and let me see your body." But for some reason, she doubled down on her strategy. Instead of screaming, she just kept talking his ear off about how he was definitely going to catch the flu, listing all the ways he could get sick and how awful it'd be. She could see him getting confused, like he couldn't figure out why she wasn't shutting up or freaking out. He kept trying to interrupt with "shut up," but she didn't stop. After a bit, she noticed his grip on the screwdriver loosening. He started stepping back, still looking at her with his puzzled expression, like he didn't know what to make of her. Then, out of nowhere, he turned and bolted out of the room. She heard him go through the fire exit door next to her room, but oddly, the alarm didn't go off. The second he was gone, the reality of what just happened crashed over her, and she burst into tears. She ran screaming to the RA, who'd been napping in the office. The campus police were called, but they brushed her off, saying she was being hysterical and that it was just a bad dream. When she mentioned the fire door not sounding the alarm, they doubled down, insisting she'd imagined the whole thing. She didn't tell her parents, scared they'd pull her out of college. They were already against her being there, thinking it was a waste of money since she'd just end up a housewife. About a week later, though, campus police came to her and asked her to come with them. They barely explained anything, just told her to walk up to a bench full of men, point out the one she dreamed about, and leave. She did it, still shaken, and didn't hear anything more about it for almost a year. Later, she found out from begging her RA for details that the man she identified was linked to a horrific crime. A week after her incident, another young woman was found dead on campus, sexually assaulted and covered in stab wounds, especially around her neck. Identifying that man was the key to connecting him to the murder. He'd been hired as an electrician for the school's new buildings, which explained how he got into her locked room and why the fire alarm didn't go off. He likely disabled it. He was found guilty and sent to a state hospital for the criminally insane. The school kept the whole thing hush-hush, not wanting word to spread that they'd hired someone like him. My grandma was never updated on the case after that and was left in the dark for the rest of her time at the university. Looking back, she says she was lucky. In the moment, all she could think about was not letting that guy see her in her pajamas, but if she'd fully grasped the danger, who knows how she would have reacted, or how he would have responded. That night could have ended so much worse. Back when I was in 8th grade, I lived down the street from my buddies Dylan and Iman. We were tight, hanging out every day after school, just messing around like kids do. After a while, we got obsessed with Ouija boards. We didn't have a real one, so we printed one off the internet and made a makeshift board using a hoop earring as the planchette. We'd play with it almost daily for a couple months, maybe longer, down in Dylan's basement, specifically in the laundry room. Just to set the scene, Dylan's basement was dark and windowless, and the laundry room was this small, enclosed space, perfect for creepy vibes. Dylan was a musical kid, and he had a xylophone down there. I remember he taught me how to play Here Comes the Sun on it, which I thought made me hot shit. This one day, we went down to the basement, and I started messing around on the xylophone, playing that tune like I was some kind of rock star. I set the mallets down flat across the xylophone keys, and we headed into the laundry room to mess with a Ouija board. A little backstory. We've been playing with this thing regularly for months, and we got to know some sort of spirit. It wasn't super chatty about certain stuff, like it flat out refused to talk about how it died. but it seemed to take a liking to me, which was weird. The earring would move fast, sometimes on its own, spelling out answers when I asked questions. I was already pretty convinced something was up, but I wanted more proof, you know? So this day, the last time the guys would ever agree to play, I decided to push it. I asked the spirit for a sign. Yeah, I know, super dumb and against all the Ouija board rules, but I was a cocky kid. The spirit agreed, and I asked, what do we need to pay attention to? The earring moved to spell out door. We all looked at the laundry room door, where a tie was hanging on the doorknob. We sat there, staring at it for about 5 minutes, waiting for something to happen. Then, out of nowhere, the tie started swinging back and forth, just a little at first, then more noticeably. The guys were stunned. There was no draft in that basement, let alone in the laundry room. No windows, no vents, nothing that could have caused it. I, on the other hand, wasn't impressed. I thought it was cool, but not enough to blow my mind. I wanted something bigger. So, like an idiot, I asked for another sign. I said, okay, give us something else. What should we pay attention to? The board spelled out, listen. We sat there, dead silent, for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, just waiting. Nothing happened at first, and I was starting to think it was a bust. Then, all of a sudden, we heard it, a single clear note from the xylophone in the other room, like someone had tapped one of the keys. We froze, looking at each other, hearts pounding. We slowly walked out of the laundry room, and when we got to the xylophone, we saw both mallets standing straight up, wedged between the keys. No way they could have balanced like that on their own. That was it for the guys. Dylan and Iman were done. They refused to touch the Ouija board again after that. I tried messing with it at my house later, but it never worked the same way. Nothing else happened that day, but the whole thing left us spooked, especially me, since I'd been the one pushing for signs. Looking back, I know I was playing with fire, but man, that moment with the xylophone still gives me chills. It was like whatever we were talking to decided to show off, and it worked. This happened just a couple of months ago, and it's the first time I've shared it with anyone. I live in Azusa, a place known for some weird stuff, paranormal activity, witchcraft, even a few Bigfoot sightings. I don't usually buy into that kind of thing, but after this night, I'm not so sure. Me and my buddy, who I'll call Bob for now, were driving up a mountain road to our favorite fishing spot at a reservoir. It was around 11 p.m., and the road was completely dead. No cars, no noise, nothing. Usually you'd hear crickets, owls, or the occasional coyote howl, but that night it was eerily quiet. I couldn't tell if it was a good or bad sign, but it made me uneasy. I mentioned it to Bob, and he admitted he was feeling on edge too. Thankfully, he had his carry permit and his .45, which gave us a little peace of mind. We shook off the weird feeling and parked at the turnoff that leads to the hiking trail. It's about a 2-mile trek through thick trees and brush to get to our spot by the reservoir. The trail is well worn, so we didn't have trouble finding our way, even in the dark. The only sounds were the leaves and twigs crunching under our feet, echoing through the silence. Our fishing spot is right on the side of a mountain, with the reservoir in front of us and dense trees on our left, right and behind. There's not much room to move, which makes what happened later even crazier. We set up and started fishing, catching 5 bass between us by about 2:30 a.m. We were both focused, waiting for the next bite, when we heard this slow, low creaking sound coming from up the mountain behind us. We glanced at each other, but didn't think much of it at first. Maybe just the wind or an animal. But the creaking got louder and louder until it ended with a deafening snap. We whipped around just in time to see a tree, about 400 yards up the mountain, start to fall and slide down the steep slope, dragging loose rocks with it. We didn't even think. We started reeling in our lines as fast as we could and bolted to the trail on our right. The tree got caught in a cluster of other trees about 50 yards from us, but a ton of rocks came tumbling down, crashing into the water right where we'd been standing. We were freaking out, hearts racing, both saying, "Holy shit, we could have fucking died." Adrenaline was pumping, so we sat on a rock by the trail to catch our breath and calm down. That's when we heard it, a loud, bellowing howl that sounded like nothing I've ever heard before. If I had to describe it, it was like a middle-aged guy letting out all his pain in one long, gut-wrenching cry, but with the force of a lion's roar. I could feel the vibration in my chest, and it just went on, chilling me to the bone. When it finally stopped, we heard something big pushing through the trees and brush, moving deeper into the mountains. That was it for us. We grabbed our gear and got the hell out of there in record time. Once we were back in the car, safe in our modern steel machine, we started to relax a bit. We even lit up a dab rig to celebrate still being alive, trying to make light of the situation. But deep down, we were shaken. Later, me and Bob talked it over and came to the conclusion that we might have been near a Sasquatch or something like it. Maybe it broke that tree to mark its territory, and we just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. We still fish at that reservoir, and plenty of weird stuff goes down in Azusa Canyon. Ghosts, Bigfoot, murders, you name it. Nowhere feels totally safe, but we'd rather be out in nature enjoying ourselves than stuck in the city. At least we get to pick our poison, right? I've been best friends with this girl since high school, going on close to 15 years now. Back in the day, I practically lived at her house more than my own since my parents were pretty awful. Her parents were amazing, treated me like another daughter, and I've always felt like part of their family. But about a year and a half ago, my friends started dating this guy, and once things got serious, we didn't hang out as much. She bought a house with him, and I've been spending more time there lately, but I hadn't been to her parents' place in forever, except for holidays and stuff. At some point in the last year, her mom got super into estate sales, buying up antiques to either decorate their house or flip on eBay. I'm not sure if it's related, but I can't help but think all those objects from dead people's homes might have something to do with the weird shit I went through. So my friend's parents asked me to pet sit for them while they were on vacation for a week. I was happy to help. They've done so much for me, and I adore their 3 dogs. I've known those pups since they were tiny, so it was a no-brainer. They keep the dogs in the tiled kitchen and dining sunroom area, blocked off with a baby gate, so any accidents are easy to clean up. The oldest dog, a bulldog named Mova, overheats easily and loves sprawling out on the cool tiles. They left out bowls of food and water, and my job was to stop by 2 or 3 times a day, spend about an hour with the dogs, and take care of the usual stuff. Feeding the fish, refilling bowls, letting them out, that kind of thing. The first day I showed up, everything seemed fine at first. I let the dogs out to do their thing and started my routine. But when I went to check the kitchen, the baby gate between the kitchen and the rest of the house was knocked down. I didn't think much of it, figured the dogs got rowdy and bumped it over. 2 of the dogs were still in the kitchen, and the way the gate had fallen made it tough for them to get out. But Mova the bulldog was missing. That was weird because he's old and not exactly nimble enough to hop over a gate. I thought maybe he'd nudged it down and wandered off to nap somewhere. He's the least likely to make a mess, so I wasn't too worried, but I knew I had to check the house for accidents just in case. I got the other 2 dogs outside, then started looking for Mova. Normally, he's mostly blind but comes waddling over when he hears me, especially with all the noise I was making with the food bowls. I called his name, checked all his favorite spots. Nothing. Then I heard him barking, but I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. I was starting to panic, feeling like I was losing my mind because I could hear him but not see him. I tore through the house, throwing open doors upstairs, and finally found him in the guest bedroom, scared out of his wits and shut inside. That freaked me out. My friend's parents had been renovating the upstairs, so the carpets were ripped up and all the furniture was in storage. They'd closed off all the upstairs doors to keep the dogs and cats out because of the tools and mess lying around. So how the hell did Mova get into a closed room and get shut in there? I was willing to write off the gate falling as an accident, but this was too much. I called my friend to tell her what happened, mostly to keep myself from freaking out while I was still in the house. She mentioned her parents had bought a fancy new dog gate before they left but forgot to set it up. She said I could find it by the front door and use it if I thought it'd help. I found the box, unpacked it, and spent the better part of an hour putting together this heavy-duty, chest-high metal gate with a pressure lock. It was solid, like no way a dog could knock it down. It took 2 hands to open, one to hold a button and the other to slide the lock. I felt pretty good about it and went home to my own dogs that night. The next morning, I came back and everything was fine. The gate held up, no issues. But when I stopped by after work that evening, my heart sank. The gate was open, not knocked down, but open, still in place between the door frame. There's no way the dogs could have done that. It needed 2 hands to unlock. And guess what? Mobile was missing again. I found him in the same damn guest bedroom upstairs, shut in like before. I was starting to get really freaked out. Day 3, I went back braced for more weirdness, and it got worse. The house has this circular layout. The living room leads to the kitchen, then to the dining room or sunroom, and there's a door from the sunroom back to the living room. That door is always locked, not just closed, but actually locked with a key. They even keep a chair in front of it to stop anyone from trying to open it, because if you swing it inward, it'd hit their expensive TV sound equipment. That door hasn't been used in years, literally since I've known my friend. They recently put a treadmill in the sunroom, blocking it even more. But when I walked in that night, the dogs were fine, but the gate was open again. And the door from the sunroom to the living room, wide open. The chair that blocks it had been pushed aside, and the door was unlocked with the key still in the lock. I'm a skeptic, even though I believe in the paranormal to some extent. I don't buy most of the ghost stories I see online or on TV. But at this point, I was terrified. There's no rational explanation for how that chair moved, how the door got unlocked, or how Mova kept ending up in a closed-off room, especially the second time, when I know I double-checked that door to make sure it was shut tight. I love my friend's family, and I respect them so much, but I don't know how to tell them I can't pet sit for them anymore. I just don't want to be in that house alone. Nothing truly awful happened, but the weirdness was too much for me. I finished the pet sitting gig, but after that, I only went back a few times, always with my sister or my friend, never alone. And when I had someone with me, nothing strange happened. I'm talking with them now about setting up a camera to catch anything weird. If anything comes up, I'll keep you posted, but man, that house gives me the creeps now. This all went down just yesterday, and I'm still shaken up about it. I'm 24, a roughneck working in the northern Minnesota logging area, among other jobs. With bow hunting season kicking off, I've been spending a lot of time out in the woods. I live on a big plot of land in Ely, Minnesota, where towns with more than 2,500 people are rare and neighbors are few and far between. The terrain up here is brutal compared to the rest of the state, which is important to the story. So here's what happened. It was opening morning of hunting season, and I was up in my non-permanent tree stand about 2.5 to 3 miles from my house in the state forest next to my property. The sun was just starting to peek out, barely lighting up the woods. I was scanning the area when I spotted something weird about 40 yards away. The trees up here are so thick I could only make out the body and neck at first, but it looked like a white-tailed deer. Except it wasn't right. Its fur was matted and dry, clinging to a bony, sickly gray frame, like something you'd see as roadkill, but it was just standing there. I reached for my binoculars, hanging in my backpack to the left, to get a better look. As I did, I got this weird feeling, like a buzzing at the back of my head, and a cold sweat broke out across my body. I glanced back at the creature, and now it was facing me. It was taller than any deer I'd ever seen, but it looked frail, almost inept. Then I saw its head and antlers, and my stomach dropped. Its eyes were milky white, completely wrong compared to the usual dark brown or black of a deer. The head was lopsided, favoring the left, with a bulging jaw that looked unnatural. The antlers were off too, not the fresh, velvety kind you'd expect this time of year, but a muddy green with a sickly, pus-like color to them. I've been through some shit in my life, seen people I care about die right in front of me, but nothing has ever scared me like this. I locked eyes with that thing for maybe a minute max, and I felt frozen, like my soul was being sucked out. I blinked, and it was gone, like I'd imagined it. But the urge to run hit me hard. I didn't waste any time. I climbed down from my stand and bolted back home. As I ran, I noticed the forest was dead silent. No birds chirping, no squirrels chattering, not even a breeze. It was like the whole place was holding its breath. This all happened yesterday morning, and I was so freaked out I refused to leave the house today. I couldn't sleep last night either because I kept feeling like something was watching me. That night, around 9 p.m., I was doing my usual chores, feeding the animals on my small hobby farm. As it got darker, I got that same shiver, that sense of being watched again. I tried letting my dogs out to run and do their business, a big pit lab mix and a German shepherd, both tough as hell, but they flat out refused. Every time I called them to the door, they'd run to the other side of the house, tails tucked. That's not like them at all. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. My girlfriend came over that night, and we talked it out. She helped me calm down a bit. By the time I went to bed, I was starting to think maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe there was a logical explanation for what I saw. I slept through the night and went to work today, feeling a little better. My girlfriend stayed at the house with the dogs while I was gone, but things weren't as okay as I thought. Sometime after I left, she woke up to loud banging and chaos outside in the chicken coop. When the sun came up, she went to check and found every single chicken dead. Not eaten, not carried off, just killed. At first, I thought maybe a fox got in, but she said every chicken was accounted for, just torn apart. I wondered if one of the dogs got loose, but she swore they were inside with her the whole time. Here's the kicker. I built that coop to be predator-proof. It's practically a fortress with a heavy-duty lock on the door. But it looked like the door was either left open or something unlocked it. I don't know what to make of it. I'm not trying to stir up controversy or start some big debate, but I know myself and I know this area. Something's not right. My girlfriend and I are still talking about it, and I'm hoping for some answers because this whole thing has me rattled. Back in October 2013, during my senior year of high school, my sister and I got sucked into browsing the web for urban legends and spooky stuff. My sister's always been a bit of a medium. She's got this knack for picking up on things that aren't quite normal, like she can sense stuff most people miss. One night, we stumbled across an article about a ritual game called the Game of 100 Candles. It's kind of like Bloody Mary, where you light 100 candles, tell ghost stories, and blow out one candle after each story. By the end, you're supposed to have summoned 100 different spirits. The article warned you to play at your own risk, but we were like, Piss H, it's just a game. None of this stuff is real. So we decided to give it a shot. We planned it for a night when our mom wouldn't be home until after 2 a.m. My sister, her best friend T, our other friend in, and I got everything ready. We waited until Mom left and the sun started to set, then set up in the kitchen. We lined up 100 tea candles on a counter, grabbed a box of matches, and turned off all the lights in the house. We opened the glass door to let the candles smoke out and shut off our phones to keep things focused. By 7:30 p.m., it was completely dark, and we started the game by lighting all the candles. At first, it was fun. We told silly, lighthearted stories like, I saw a ghost, and it went boo. We'd laugh, blow out a candle, and move on. But after the first 10 candles, the vibe in the room shifted. The air felt heavy, almost electric, and the hair on my neck and arms started standing up. Even my sister, who's used to weird stuff, started squirming in her chair. We kept going though, moving on to candles 11 through 20. The house got so quiet it was almost painful, and our stories started getting darker. Real accounts of creepy things we'd actually seen or experienced, not just goofy made-up tales. As we blew out more candles, we started hearing creaks and cracks around us. We lived in an older house, so it wasn't unusual for it to make some noise, but this was louder, more noticeable. We finished the next set of 10, and by now, everyone was on edge. The laughter was gone, and we were all feeling uneasy, but we ignored the sounds and kept playing. By the time it was around 8:45 p.m., things took a bad turn. The creaks and cracks were getting louder and more frequent. When we blew out the 25th candle, we heard what sounded like a car pulling into the driveway, a door slamming, and footsteps walking up the deck to the glass door. We froze, waiting for the motion lights outside to turn on, but they never did. No one came to the door either. Then we heard footsteps walking back across the deck and fading away. One of our friends suggested we pause and check outside to make sure it wasn't our mom coming home early. We looked. No car, no mom, nothing. My sister pulled out a dowsing pendulum, and we all agreed to use it, setting the rules. Clockwise for yes, counterclockwise for no, and we'd say goodbye when we were done. She asked, "Is someone here with us?" The pendulum swung hard in a clockwise circle. T asked, "Is there more than one of you here?" It swung clockwise again, and getting annoyed, grabbed the pendulum and said, "This is some bullshit." He asked, "Did you come because we played this game?" The pendulum swung clockwise. Then he got bold and said, "If you're really here, why don't you prove it?" Right then, we heard a loud thud against the wall behind us. We tried to brush it off, convincing ourselves we were just freaking out and someone must have thrown something in the dark to make the noise. Curiosity got the better of us, though, and then suggested we keep playing. So we did, and told a story about seeing a specter in his dreams that later appeared in real life. He blew out the 26th candle, and 2 more went out on their own. My sister went pale. She later told us she saw a solid black mass moving down the hallway toward us. The room felt like it dropped 10 degrees, and we all noticed it. We sat there in silence for a moment, spooked, and still trying to act tough, said, "If you're really here, I need a sign." That's when shit hit the fan. We heard heavy, loud footsteps coming down the hallway, and a door creaked open. The candle flames started flickering, even though there was no breeze. T whispered that he felt something breathing behind him, even though I was to his right, and my sister and her friend were across from us. We couldn't see anything. T froze, then whipped around. Nothing was there. Then the glass door we'd left open slowly creaked shut on its own. No wind or anything. T started freaking out, saying, "Someone's touching my arm, my neck, my face." That was it for us. Someone, I think it was T, yelled, "Fuck this, I'm done. Say goodbye." So we did. We blew out the rest of the candles, turned on every light in the house, and stuck together like glue. Even with the candles out and the game over, the air still felt heavy, like something was lingering. We moved to the dining room, where we'd heard the thud earlier, to turn on more lights. When we got there, we saw Halloween decorations scattered on the floor, like they'd been thrown off their spots. On top of the server was our mom's old battery-powered witch decoration, which hadn't worked in years because the batteries were long dead. As we stood there, we heard a cracking noise from the corner of the room. We turned to see the witch rocking back and forth, her wrinkled plastic hands clapping together, slowly at first, then faster. Then it just fell over. As it hit the ground, we heard a loud bang, like a door or cabinet slamming shut somewhere else in the house. T screamed, saying his face was burning. We turned to look, and he had a small scratch on his cheek with a trickle of blood running down. That was the last straw. We grabbed our phones and keys and bolted out of the house, dropping our friends off at their places. We didn't go back home until much later, when another friend came over to stay with us until our mom got home. We turned on cartoons, cranked the volume, and tried to drown out the banging, footsteps, and heavy breathing that seemed to wander through the house for the rest of the night. Ever since that night, we've had weird activity in our home. I've shared this story elsewhere, but I'm convinced playing the 100 Candles game was the spark that started it all. I've moved out since then, but my sister still lives there and says she still sees that shadowy figure from time to time. Looking back, we really should have listened to the warnings, but we were young and curious. That night taught us the hard way that some games aren't worth playing. Back when I was working as a paramedic, responding to 911 calls, I saw some wild stuff, but this one call still haunts me. My partner and I got dispatched to an apartment complex for a person not acting right. When we pulled up, it was nighttime, raining, and everyone in the building, except the patient, was standing outside, looking absolutely terrified. They were shaking, soaked to the bone, and staring at us like we were walking into something bad. I approached a 25-year-old guy who seemed to be the one who called us. He looked at me and said, "We were just playing a game when my girlfriend started shrieking and screaming. All the lights went out, even the candles, and then she dropped onto her stomach on top of the board game. Her head, hands, and legs shot up into the air, and then she just collapsed, got up, and ran to the back of the apartment." My partner and I exchanged a look, grabbed our mag lights, and headed up the steps to the apartment. The door was already cracked open, so I knocked and announced myself, 911 ambulance paramedic, before stepping inside. The light switch didn't work, and the place fell off right away. I could hear this faint creaking, like it's swaying back and forth. The walls were painted dark, black and maroon, with heavy metal skulls and creepy paintings everywhere. It was clear these folks were into some intense stuff. We called out for the patient, moving deeper into the apartment, and it just kept getting colder, like the temperature was dropping with every step. Finally, we found her in a back room, sitting in a rocking chair, slowly moving back and forth, staring straight ahead. I introduced myself. "Hi, I'm with the ambulance. Can you tell me what's going on?" No response. She just kept rocking, eyes fixed on nothing. I got closer to check her out. Her eyes were so dark. Either her pupils were huge or her irises were just black. I couldn't tell. Her vitals were normal, blood sugar fine, no signs of a seizure, no track marks or anything suggesting drug use. I tried a sternal rub and squeezed her shoulder to get a reaction, but she didn't even flinch, just kept rocking, staring straight ahead. In situations like this, when someone's not alert to person, place, time, or event, protocol says they need to go to the hospital. I told her, "Since you're not talking, we're going to move you to the stretcher, okay?" The second I said that, the rocking stopped. Not just her chair. Every sound in the apartment went dead silent. All I could hear was our breathing. My partner and I lifted her, me under her armpits, him under her legs, and as we did, something bizarre happened. Her body stayed rigid, like she was still sitting, even as we lifted her. It was unnatural, like moving a mannequin. We laid her on the stretcher and wheeled her to the ambulance, and as we loaded her in, these loud cracking noises filled the air, like tree branches snapping. In the back of the ambulance, I noticed she was staring right at me now, with this huge, crazed smile that made my skin crawl. No matter where I moved, her head tracked me, that toothy grin never wavering. I tried to keep it light, saying, "Good, maybe now you'll talk to me." But she didn't say a word. We cranked the heat full blast, but the back of the ambulance stayed freezing cold. I dropped my pen at one point and bent down to grab it. When I looked back up, she let out the most ear-piercing scream I've ever heard, shrieking and lunging at me, grabbing at the air. She was snapping her teeth, biting in my direction, trying to break free from the stretcher's seat belts. Thank God they held, keeping her just out of reach. Her face shifted from that creepy smile to pure terror, then rage, like something was fighting inside her. My partner, driving up front, must have heard the chaos, but he just kept going. Luckily, we were already pulling into the hospital, a Catholic one, no less. The second we rolled into the ER bay, she stopped. No more screaming, no more lunging. She just went quiet, staring straight ahead again, like nothing had happened. We wheeled her into the ER and told the doctor everything. He was stunned, to say the least, but took over from there. I don't know what happened to her after that, but that call left me rattled. I've seen a lot in this job, but nothing like that woman's eyes, that smile, or the way she moved. It was like something else was in control, and I'll never forget it.